Project Semicolon is really taking the world by storm. It started off as an online project encouraging people to draw semicolons somewhere on their body to represent a point where an author could have potentially ended a sentence but chose not to. It's a really beautiful metaphor, encouraging people to be aware of those around them who are potentially suicidal, and of course it's all a bid to highlight suicide prevention. But what are the statistics in South Africa? Well, I'm joined in studio by Ryan Edmonds. He's going to speak to us a little bit more. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
You're from the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. Of course, you work very closely with South Africans. Can you give us any indication of the South African context?
The suicide and depression contexts in South Africa are very high at the moment. It's quite alarming. We know that 1 in every 4 South Africans has diagnosed or undiagnosed depression at the moment. So it's about 16% of our population who are suffering from mental health disorders. And 10% of our South African youth are affected by suicide annually. So it really, really is high. We also know that we have, on average, 23 successful suicides in South Africa a day. So our statistics are alarming.
Now, you say 23 successful suicides, and unfortunately that implies that there are many more South Africans who try and commit suicide but who aren't successful.
To give you an example, within the SADAG call center, where people can phone in and receive help or guidance involving any form of mental health issues, we get between 600 and 800 calls a day, the majority of them depression and suicide.
Now, there was a recent story that is just really heartbreaking. It involves a Facebook update and a young woman. Why don't you tell us about that?
Sadly, a lot of people don't take suicide threats, and I use this term very, very loosely, seriously. When we go and do work at schools, kids always say, don't take it seriously, people are just trying to get attention. The first point of call is we educate people to take every suicidal threat seriously. So what happened with this young lady is over a period of days, she was posting statuses that were quite obvious to the people who would have read them. She even posted her final selfies the day that she died, and people never commented, they never did anything. SADAG began an initiative a while ago where you can actually report suicidal content on Facebook, and SADAG will be contacted directly and we will try and intervene with that person.
So if you are on Facebook, you're on a social network, and you see that somebody who you connect with has got statuses, photographs that are concerning, do you contact your group?
I would always say yes. People are very scared that their friend might get upset with them. If we're talking about young people especially, that they would have reported such content to us. But we have a motto with teens that we use: rather lose the friendship than lose the friend to suicide. So people can contact SADAG directly. They can also report the status on Facebook. And then we can somehow intervene in a non-threatening way. We also will never just contact a person and say, what's going on in your life? It allows them the choice to contact SADAG.
Now, I think there's a big misconception out there, certainly in schools, that if somebody is talking about wanting to commit suicide, if they're articulating this, then they're obviously just looking for attention. I remember educators even saying things along the lines of, somebody who really wants to commit suicide won't tell anybody. Now, what you're saying is this is not the case.
It's not always the case. There are obviously times where people are keeping it to themselves, but we educate people on the signs and symptoms of depression, such as a change in a person's personality, maybe withdrawal. Very often the complete opposite, where a person becomes very outgoing and tries to mask their depression, giving items away that that they love, final letters, final messages. We notice a change within a person, and we always take these things seriously, but there usually are warning signs that we look out for.
Now, unfortunately, there is a stigma around mental health in some places in South Africa, in certain communities, and certainly in some cities, in some workplaces, in some families even. But really, there's no reason to be stigmatized about mental health. If you had insulin imbalance in your body, you wouldn't think twice about taking medication for diabetes. It's really the same thing when it comes to mental health.
It's exactly the same thing. We always, one of the stigmas or one of the myths that people do, and it's so sad, they say, just snap out of it. Just snap out of your depression. Just get happy. Because if you've never been in that place, you don't understand it. So we would say you would never ask someone to snap out of cancer. It's the exact same thing with mental health. It is a clinical illness. A person needs intervention medically, psychologically, socially from a support group. But medication can definitely help the person. It's like a crutch just to help them get through the situation, yes.